Good afternoon. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us for the El Segundo Back to Business Roundtable. As you all know, El Segundo is known for its vibrant business community, from downtown retail and restaurants to startups and mid-sized companies in Smoky Hollow and elsewhere, to large-scale enterprises in aerospace, national defense, biotech, e-commerce, manufacturing, marketing, hospitality, and real estate. The city is also home, of course, to two of LA's professional sports franchises and its newspaper of record. The folks gathered for this discussion represent those El Segundo businesses and industries which employ a great many people. Also in attendance today are two of our elected representatives. Congressman Ted Lieu and State Senator Ben Allen are both here, and thank you both. As mayor, I'm glad for the opportunity to connect the people in this group. I believe it's the city's duty and it's in the public's interest to get the leaders of our industries together with important policymakers to discuss how we can move forward and be as strong as possible as we come out of COVID-19. I'd like to go around and introduce each member of our esteemed roundtable panel, and then I'll turn it over to Deputy City Manager Barbara Voss, who will kick off a round of updates and comments about the current situation. As I mentioned, today we have joining us Representative Ted Lieu, Member of Congress. We also have State Senator Ben Allen, representing the 26th District of California. And from the business community, now these are in alphabetical order, all of them are VIPs, we have Mira Batia, President of Expert Services with Textile Fashion Group. We also have Kelly Cheeseman, COO of AEG Sports. Rob Croxall, owner of El Segundo Brewing Company and Slice and Pint. Shar Franklin, General Manager of the Embassy Suites. Michael Hackman, CEO and founder of Hackman Capital Partners. Mike Mothner, founder and CEO of W Promote. Luke Robitaille, president of the LA Kings and an incredible former player. Dr. Patrick Soon-shiong, owner and chief executive officer of NatWorks and the LA Times and many other entities. We also have Melanie Strickland, the chief strategy officer for Slingshot Aerospace. We're all thrilled that you're here. Thank you so much. I know we're going to have a great conversation. I'm going to turn it over to Barbara Voss. Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you to all of you once again. Our business community is just fantastic. And when we ask for participation or support in any of our economic development efforts, you all have come through for us every single time. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this discussion. I'm really excited that we are launching this multifaceted effort to help our businesses in the recovery and reopening process. It's a complex issue and it's also unprecedented. So we're learning as we go, and your input as business leaders is critical. So our new campaign, you'll see the logo there, El Segundo Back to Business. This event is one of many things within that campaign. We have a website on elsegundobusiness.com dedicated to coronavirus resources. We're also focusing on specific areas of the city. So we have a group comprised of downtown business owners. Rob Croxall serves on that group as well, to address what we can do for our small downtown businesses. And we're so fortunate to have single-owned, family-owned businesses and not a lot of big chains in our downtown area. And we want to make sure that we can support all of our businesses and getting the access to the information they need and making the decisions that will help to ease this process of slowly reopening. And a lot of that, too, is information. We want to make sure that you have all the information you need. As we all know, the orders come out from the LA County Department of Public Health. You know, we all need to interpret those orders and understand what it means for each of our businesses. So we'd like to be a resource to help with that as well. So I'd like to begin with, I'll turn it back over to Mayor Boyles. We wanted to hear from you, a quick update, maybe a couple minutes on Mayor Drew will ask you a question, but also want to just hear your thoughts and your feedback on how this last 6 to 8 weeks has been for you. So Mayor Boyles.
Thanks, Barbara. Great job. We're going to go first to Ms. Batia, the president of Expert Services at Textile, and then we'll go to Mr. Croxall of El Segundo Brewing Company after that. So, Ms. Batia, Textile has been growing rapidly and expanding its office footprint in El Segundo as an online retailer, and I know you also have stores as well. How have revenues been affected by the pandemic, and what do you anticipate in the future?
Yeah. So, by the way, thank you for having me here today, and great pleasure to be able to talk to you. So you're correct that we do also have a physical retail presence, and obviously that's where we took our biggest sort of short-term hit, having to shut down those stores, specifically on our Fabletics brand. We made a pledge very early on to our employee base. We considered layoffs the absolute last resort. And that meant we did things like redeploy our retail associates who work in physical stores into other parts of our business where helpful, so that we could continue paying people. I think immediate action was a lot of sort of reconfiguration and almost like ruthless prioritization of where we were investing in the things that we were spending on. But the benefit of being a direct-to-consumer business is that we've had unprecedented demand really coming into our business over the last several months. I think it started where there was sort of the first few weeks of just as stay-at-home orders were coming out. I think there was a lot of uncertainty broadly, and people were trying to figure out how they were going to react. And we saw some of that uncertainty in our business. But since then, really, we've seen, people are online, they're consuming media, which means they're consuming advertising, and they're shopping from home. So it's been very beneficial to our business from an overall perspective. We've obviously had to react, continuing to figure out how to ship and distribute in a world where we have to be, really protecting the health and safety of our employees, and making sure we can actually, function in the warehouses in a socially distant way. So we've definitely felt on the operational side, it's been very difficult for us to keep up with the demand because of how quickly we're trying to rejigger our processes. But overall, I'd say we feel like we're in a strong position. The transition for people to work from home from our entire company went better than we expected. We're just really thrilled with kind of the effort. And it almost feels like people are working, despite all the personal distractions and the worry and all of that, it feels like people are almost working harder to just make sure that, the business is successful. So we're really thankful to our teams for that. Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Croxall, you're both a manufacturer and a restaurant owner. How have you adapted, and how do you think this pandemic will change your overall operations in the next year and beyond?
First of all, thanks for having me, Drew. It's really forced us to be in a position where we need to be nimble, and we've really had to pivot our business. Before all this started, we were really very heavily focused in retail, with our wholesale part being a much smaller part of the business. On that wholesale side, we're a brewery, we do production of beer. That accounted for about 60% of our business that went out to bars and restaurants in a keg kind of format. We have distribution across 19 different states, and we lost 100% of our draft orders. So about 60% of our business went out the window. Fortunately, we're one of the bigger breweries in LA, and we have a pretty reasonable grocery presence. So we were able to pivot and gain a little bit of market because we're already in cans and have the means to do that. A lot of other breweries that are smaller than us don't have that. And I know from also being on the board for the LA County Brewers Guild that some breweries are off by as much as 90%. So the fact that we're off by about 50% on the brewery side overall, we're sustaining. It's not great, but we're hoping to see, as things loosen up, some of the retail come back, because that really is where our bread and butter is. On the restaurant side of things, it's a little bit more tricky. We had to pivot from a hospitality-focused model, bringing people in, beer, wine, pizza, where we receive that benefit of selling our product across the counter, to going to exclusively a takeout model. And that's hit us to the tune of about 40% drop in our revenue. So we're sustaining on that side, but we're kind of in this wait and see mode, waiting to see what's going to be coming down as far as operating directions. And, we do have concerns going forward where, if a 6 foot, if it's the 6 foot rule, that has a major impact on the restaurant side, because it's not as simple as, cutting our occupancy in half and therefore cutting our expenses in half. When we go back to some kind of service model, it's pretty much coming back with a full load, our full expense. So finding that balance. And then also, if the 6 foot rule is applied in the kitchen, there's not going to be very many restaurants out there that are going to be compliant in that, because most restaurants just weren't really designed that way. So, I mean, I think we've done a really good job adjusting, and I think we're just going to, we're going to keep focusing on just trying to be nimble and wait for the direction to come down the pipe.
Thanks, Rob. Great seeing you, bud. Great beer. Love your product. Thanks. Miss Franklin, General Manager of Embassy Suites. Hospitality has been dramatically affected. I know you and I had conversations very early on about this. Occupancy rates plummeting. What adaptations do you see in your industry to operate in this environment?
Thank you, Mayor, and good afternoon to all. So I think as we start off from where we were to where we are now, I think we're in a transition, and I think we're all looking ahead to recovery. And as we start with that process, I think the safety and security of our team members and guests is at the core of all of our recovery plans. Hilton has announced a new program. I think all brands will have new programs. And the Hilton program is called Hilton Clean Stay. And its goal is to deliver an industry-defining standards of cleanliness and disinfection by developing elevated processes and team member training to help guests enjoy an even cleaner and safer stay. And we hope to launch this program next month. As we go through this transition, and Mr. Mayor, as you said, adapting to this situation, we're also creating reimagined solutions to put our guests at ease, from customizing setups, menus, introducing technologies, and having certified clean spaces. So we are recreating how we respectfully and mindfully can get together again. So further, as we reimagine hotels of the future, we are developing new training programs, practices for our team members to service our customers. So here's some good news. I think we all need some good news, is that we're beginning to see some signs of recovery, looking at the third quarter and the fourth quarter. So that is very encouraging, and I think we're all focused on, we're going to get over this. We don't know how long this would be, but I think we're starting to see those signs. And I think all in the tourism and hospitality industry is encouraged by that. And we certainly want to keep the momentum. So when things do happen, that we're all ready for it. We fully expect people to travel and when it's safe to do so. And I think everybody in our industry, especially the hoteliers in El Segundo, will be ready and prepared to welcome our guests.
Thank you. Mr. Hackman, CEO and founder of Hackman Capital Partners. You have a significant project underway at 888 North Douglas in El Segundo. Are you rethinking your vision for that property and any other properties you have throughout LA? I know you have a big one in Culver City. So maybe talk us through if your plans have changed at all.
Well, they've only changed on a minor level. The project has been moving along well. We implemented a lot of protocols within the construction group to bring health facilities on site. We've been practicing social distancing and doing it so our capacity is maybe 85% of what it was before in terms of efficiency, which slows it down a little bit. But what has changed is we're looking at that project now and looking to implement more control on who gets on and off the property. So what we're finding right now is over the last 30 to 60 days, we've had a lot of larger companies valuing at a much higher level the concept of having a complete campus where they can create and control their ecosystem in terms of who gets on and off that lot. So in this situation, what we're going to do is look to creating more security so we can control at the beginning who gets on the property, and the fact that we have a 30-acre site that is a hugely beneficial component. And then on the other side, we're working with Dr. soon-shiong's people at the LA Times to think about how we can, work with the Metro Rail and control access, on that end as well, so we can create a safe working environment. So that's what everyone wants. And the last piece of it is that how active do we get as an owner in trying to create testing capacity, on site? Because now I think others will talk about it. They do have technology that will allow you to turn around results within 90 minutes, on a PCR test, which could be very invaluable for certain types of industries where it's necessary for people to work within closer proximity than 6 feet. And so, and bringing that cost down, and how do you make that happen so you can get some of these industries working better is where we're focused on. So long and short of it is that it's very impactful. People have slowed down, but I think in terms of our project, the fact that we have a tremendous amount of size, we have a controlled environment, we have flexibility, I think we still are very confident in what we're doing, and we are continuing to move ahead. We own 3 major television film production studios and very involved in media. So out of our approximate $4 billion portfolio, I would say 75% of that is in media or tech. On the media side, that filming in Los Angeles is down 18% so far in 2020 and will continue to fall because of COVID. We had a strong January, but in LA through March, based on the cutbacks and shutting down the studios, you had a start of about 1,091 local-based productions filming in February that dwindled to 644 projects in March, and they dwindled further. The hardest hit sector has been television, with an overall decline of 20.6%. That's in production, not in viewership. So that's gone down. And then scripted shows has gone down, as well as episodic television shows. What's gone up is everyone is spending a lot of time at home. So streaming has gone up 85%. Examples, Netflix, I think, signed up 15.8 million customers. So, that business is going gangbusters. So the production companies, all the content producers, they want to get back into production as soon as possible. It's all about trying to create a safe working environment. All the organizations are working with the unions right now, and including IATSE, the Directors Guild, SAG, to try to come up with protocols that will work and then coordinate that with city officials. A big component of this is going to be testing and determining how to conduct that testing. We've been putting a lot of time and effort to determine whether it's worthwhile to build the laboratory testing within each studio to make that possible, what that capacity would be. There's also a challenge on one of our studios, which is at Television City on the broadcast side, because you have audience participation. So how do you make that happen in this environment? So an example, we have a show called The Price is Right that's been around forever. How do you have that show if people have to sit 6 feet apart from each other and wear masks? So there's certain challenges.
Thank you, Mr. Hackman. Keep us posted on that complete campus idea. I think that's really cool that you have that opportunity before you. Thanks for that. All right, Mr. Mothner, your digital advertising company has expanded throughout the country over the last few years. Do you see your clients changing and adapting their advertising efforts, or are they putting things on hold? What have you seen in your industry?
Yeah, it's interesting. When this, all started about 8-9 weeks ago, we made a really concerted effort to say, guys, in digital advertising and advertising in general, this is not a binary thing. There was a lot of early fear, and the knee-jerk reaction was, hey, let's turn this off and wait and hunker down. And I think we did a really good job at describing that, no, you don't want to think about it as binary. You want to think about planning for the future and what this is going to look like in the short, medium, and long run. So the good news is that we've seen a lot of that. And so it's interesting. I was just looking at stats this week. We are finally, with a number of, and we have clients across a lot of different sizes and a lot of industries, we are seeing spend levels on Google, Facebook, et cetera, that are eclipsing pre-COVID, right? So they really are seeing, and that's a significant leading indicator. We bucket our clients when we looked at this in kind of a barbell. About 15, 20% are direct hits, right? Airlines, hotels, this is a challenging period. It's going to be a lengthy recovery. The middle, 70%, we sort of called strong but wounded, right? They will make it, but there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of time uncertainty. And concern, and we work through that. And then the other 15% is this is a major opportunity, right? There are millions of people that are learning to work out and eat and learn and work differently. And not all those people are going to return to the way they did things, right? We have 500 people that we flipped the switch and went 100% work from home overnight. It's similar to the first speaker. It went better than we ever would have hoped. I think I hated the idea of doing this 10 years ago. The technology has caught up and we never really gave it a shot. And we did a survey last week of where people want to, what is their ideal work scenario? And the significant majority do not want to return 100% to work. Some of that's a health concern and some of that's temporary and some of that's permanent. And so I think we're going to see a considerably different way of working in the future going forward.
Thanks, Mr. Mothner. And it'd be interesting to see how that plays out in terms of real estate value, potentially, if less people are going to work. Really, really insightful. Thank you, sir. All right, next up we have Mr. Robitaille and Mr. Cheeseman of the Kings and AEG, respectively. And you guys can tag team on this however you want to do it, but we're all aware that the sports and entertainment industry has been hit hard by this. What creative solutions have you come up with to keep your fans engaged? And what do you foresee for spectator sports as we move towards reopening?
Thank you, everybody, for having us. We're, obviously with the Kings and AEG, we're in the business of mass gatherings, live events, and renting real estate down at LA Live. So you guys can imagine the impact that it's had on our organization and our company. As we went into this, the first thing we had to do, like everybody else, is focus on our staff, our players, and protecting, everybody within our organizations and the players across all the different professional leagues. But as an organization, I think we found through a lot of research in sports right now that, supporting our fans and our community is critical. So there's been a lot of innovation, I think, that we've seen across sports right now. And you've seen it from, ways that media is engaged consistently. When media doesn't have games to write about, they want to engage with players. And there's been a consistent amount of engagement across all the different leagues, from players doing Zoom media calls to increased use of social media from players that we typically wouldn't have seen here, when they're playing games, because they're so focused on actually participating in the sport. So we've had a tremendous amount of media outreach for all our organizations, in particular in the Kings. And we've had, I think, 145 media requests within the last 3 weeks that we fulfilled with our players, which is pretty significant when there's nothing really going on. So, and it's all different ways of creativity, from, using social media, from using Zoom to using also streaming all of our past games, a lot of pickup and additional coverage of our 2012 and 2014 championship games, and allowing our fans to rewatch those games on national and local broadcast. Bailey, our mascot, streamed every game on Twitch, and all of our fans were able to engage and chat during those games. But he streamed out the remaining schedule and played out the schedule on Twitch, which was fun to see. And we had thousands of fans actually tuning in for those games, and basically watching fake games on esports was pretty interesting to see. I'll kick it over to Luke. Maybe he could talk a little bit about the return to play.
Anyway, for hockey, it is a good opportunity to show games, even though there won't be fans over the summer. So we're working real hard on to seeing what the right opportunity will be, because we might have an opportunity to get some new fans that probably have never seen a hockey game, and they would start learning. I do see that because there will be no fans in the building, there might be new opportunity to produce the game and to add camera angles and do different things that could be a lot of fun. Another thing that Kelly touched a little bit on is the way our players are involved with our fans and with the press right now. I think this will change going in the future. I mean, it is hard for any sports team to to get their players involved on a day in and day out basis, because I think that the days of the media scrums, we might not see those anymore. For us, we're seeing that it's fairly easy right now to call our players and to say, will you do something on Zoom like an interview, or will you do something for this channel and so forth? It seems a lot easier. So we might be able to show the personality of our players even more in the future because of that. I could see in this season, because our guys get busy, you go see them post-game or post-practice, say, hey, tomorrow we need you for 15 minutes when you're at your home to talk to this channel and so forth. And now that we're getting used to this new world, I think we'll be able to get our players out there even that much more and to do more than we've ever thought before we could do. And from that standpoint, we fully intend to take the opportunity.
That's really interesting. Thanks for sharing that, Luke. That's really interesting. Both of you, thanks so much. Great partners to El Segundo. Dr. Patrick Soon-shiong, owner and CEO of NatWorks LA Times, many different industries. I've heard that NatWorks has been working on treatments and or a vaccine for coronavirus. Can you give us an update on the progress, and also how are things going for you at the LA Times and NatWorks?
Okay, so let's first talk about the LA Times. I think, first of all, I'm really proud of the reporters and editorial staff. They've really stepped up, and it's so important for us to provide factual information, truthful information, and for the community to understand. And we've tried through the science behind the coronavirus to do that. Having said that, I don't think many people realize that 50% of the revenue were from advertising. And the New York Times has now said that as well. So that's almost gone down to about literally 40%. So a significant chunk of the revenue of a really struggling industry. So with the senator and the congressman on the participation here, and I think one of the things that's going through Congress now is to find ways to save local news. So I'd urge you both to really work real hard to figure out a way. With these new affiliation rules, unfortunately, it's created impossibility for even local newspapers now to survive. So we support both San Diego Tribune and LA Times. And it's been tremendously difficult without the revenue. But we'll have to figure that out and figure out that change as we move along. At the end of the day, this COVID, we took this on in February, literally from the moment that sequence came out. So our organization is involved with three elements of the COVID. One on the testing. And I think that becomes key in order for businesses to open. Testing and contact tracing is absolutely the path. And if you look at Korea and Taiwan, that is the model for which everybody should focus. Testing requires a very innovative form of testing where you can actually have point of care testing at the point of the businesses. So we very much will be working on establishing where you can have a turnaround test within 30 minutes and a very accurate test within 90 minutes, so that you can bring people into the businesses, have them test, and be very careful that you don't have a false negative. But bring them in, you capture the false positives, we capture the positives, and you can isolate and contact test. So that testing model is now up. We validated our test. We will soon be at the level of 2,000 tests a day, and then soon to 10,000 tests a day. We're building a high throughput testing inside El Segundo in Culver City so that we can actually provide that kind of. So with regard to testing, the first thing we want to do is now do bulk testing for all the hospitals. So as you may know, we launched Los Angeles Surge Hospital with Governor Newsom. The St. Vincent campus is the Los Angeles Surge Hospital for COVID. The Seton Hospital is a hospital in Northern California. So we're intimately involved around with healthcare and the healthcare workers and the exposure. So the first thing we will be doing is doing bulk testing. The reagents, etc., are unavailable even to the hospitals. We've now made plans and will soon, as I said, within weeks, have ability to do 2,000 tests a day. With regard to tests, there's a PCR test that we talked about, but there's also another test in which you can do antigen testing. And we've developed now an antigen testing, which will require less of the reagents. And the idea is to have both. And from that testing is the point of actually making sure, are you positive, are you not positive? And that's going to reduce the risk. At the end of the day, for us to all come back to normalcy, you need a vaccine. And so, as you know, Drew, we were fortunate with El Segundo. Between El Segundo and Culver City, we have 8 manufacturing plants of cell-based and protein-based manufacturing plants, fully GMP plants. And we were building this for natural killer cells. We've now repurposed those plants to make the vaccine. And by our calculations, we could have 100 million doses by December, which then says we would have sufficient doses, at least for a significant portion of the country. In El Segundo, remarkably, you will be the source of the drug substance of 100 million doses of this vaccine. Then moving beyond the vaccine is the treatments. The other thing, the reason we're all scared is because of the death. Once you're on the ventilator, the fatality rates, sadly, in New York was 60 to 80%. What I fear, just so you know, I really fear that if we, and Tony Fauci said it perfectly yesterday, if we're too impatient and open too soon, we may go into a spiral where we can't control. This virus is enormously vicious. It is 20 times more infective than SARS. It actually activates and goes into every cell that has a thing called ACE2. It goes into your lungs, your GI tract, and your blood vessels, and even into your brain, to the kidney and to the liver. So I don't think people realize that unless we have, one, the testing available, the contact testing available, and very close to the vaccine, and treatments, remdesivir is interesting, but it really can't, unless you combine that with treatments early on in the disease. You do not want patients to go into what I call this cytopathic storm, where you go into the ICU. So I want to warn all of us, while it's no question it's a tough time economically, until we can get better control of understanding the virus, getting closer to the vaccine, which we are, having treatments that we biologically understand what's going on, all of which, by the way, is amazingly close. And the reason I say that is my fellow scientists and we at NantWorks have done nothing else but devote ourselves to this COVID. And so I'm pretty confident, number one, that between all the industries, there will be a vaccine. I'm excited about our vaccine because the vaccine that we're developing has already been in patients. It's been in 125 patients, 11 phase 1 clinical trials in cancer patients. It's part of our non-cancer vaccine, so that system has already been adopted. I'm excited also about the treatments that are coming through. There clearly will be a neutralizing antibody. There will clearly be antibodies available. There's now knowledge about the immune system, the natural killer cells. I'm also hopeful that we can now begin to understand what happens when patients go into the ICU. And we've just gotten approval for the thing called a stem cell, a mesenchymal stem cell, which, by the way, was used for patients with osteoarthritis and knee injuries. And when you inject that into patients in the ICU, you actually tamp down the storm, get them off the ventilator. So I think there's a lot of progress. It so happens that NantWorks was built for this, sadly, but also excitingly, between the testing, the genomics, the sequencing, the vaccine, and the manufacturing, between Culver City and El Segundo, and our plants in Colorado and Chicago. We have 8 manufacturing plants literally ready to make these doses.
Thank you, Dr. Patrick. Very encouraging. We're proud to have you in El Segundo. All right, next up is Ms. Strickland. Melanie is the Chief Strategy Officer for Slingshot Aerospace. And Ms. Strickland, as an aerospace startup focusing on utilizing artificial intelligence for analytics to guide decision-making, is your company helping with analytics to support the efforts to control this pandemic?
Hi, thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I really appreciate it. Always nice to hear from other entrepreneurs and business owners in the community. It's very encouraging. As far as the pandemic itself, not in the way Patrick and his team are going after the pandemic, but we have actually had an upswing in leveraging our technologies to help with societal benefit around this. For example, 211 LA, not sure if you all are familiar with that, but they serve the certain population here in Los Angeles that's underserved. And so we're taking a very scientific Earth portal capability that we have and turning it into a food finder. And so leveraging analytics from their databases and other databases to provide a real-time understanding of where food pop-ups are and where food is available for seniors and delivery and those types of things. So it's a neat turn on the capability, but we're doing that. And then also during this time, our customers such as insurance and defense, they're all re-engineering their rules and business processes, mission procedures, et cetera. And so, for example, with our insurance companies handling natural disaster claims to suffice, whether it's policy satisfaction or reduce their own time and cost, it's very, very difficult right now during this pandemic to actually send people out physically, deploy them as claim adjusters to really understand the disaster scene. And so our technology is now being leveraged as a virtual agent, so to speak. And so really helping those insurance companies get the payouts out faster, better, et cetera. And so it's really neat to see the opportunities that this pandemic has brought to Slingshot and really opening the doors for our technology to be leveraged in different ways than it was intended to. So that's two examples of how we're leveraging the tech.
That's great. Thank you, Ms. Strickland. Really appreciate that. This next round is going to be questions for the policymakers. So I'll call on each business person and you can direct a question to Congressman Liu or Senator Allen. And I think you should know, I think you've probably been provided some guidance in terms of who your question goes to. If not, we can help you with that. But first up is Ms. Patia of Textile.
Hey, sorry, my question I think is probably directed to both, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about kind of the state of PPE. I know it's a very hot topic in the very early days of kind of this whole crisis. We've made a couple direct donations to hospitals of medical grade PPE, but we're not, we also have been making things locally. We're not even sure where to direct them. And to be honest, not sure if essential workers, if the need is still there. So we'd love to hear a bit more about that.
Sure. First of all, thank you, Mayor Boyles, for your leadership. And I'm honored to be on here with State Senator Allen. And before I answer your question, I know Patrick had referenced newspaper. So I will follow up with the LA Times. We'll see what can be done to support the newspaper industry. In terms of PPE, I was on a call yesterday with the president of the Los Angeles County Medical Association, Dr. Shai Roy, who's a cardiologist. And he says that there are still shortages of PPE, depends on the hospital. And it's also something that ends up being used rather quickly. And so hospitals are churning through this PPE every single day. So there's still a need for it. My office has, in the last few weeks, helped some folks get PPE shipments unstuck from customs or unstuck from airports and other places. So we're happy to help with that as well. My staff is also on this call. But if you want to look at places to direct the PPE, I can have my staff follow up with you and we can make sure that they get to the places that need it.
I'm curious, because one thing we were also hesitant about is how helpful it is for businesses to be getting involved in this PPE kind of sourcing. You know, we have access to factories in China, and is that helpful or disruptive to the supply chain And is it better to just give money to a nonprofit, for example?
Certainly giving money to nonprofits are great things to do. If you can actually have a secure supply of PPE that is not counterfeit and can get delivered on time, then that would in fact be helpful. And both the state of California and LA County have point people whose sole purpose is to try to get PPE secured, and we can put you in touch with those people.
Great, thank you.
I would absolutely agree with the congressman. It would be very helpful if there really is PPE that's accessible and is going to be delivered on time at a non-exorbitant price. The problem is we've run into so many folks who promise the world, and there's actually been some great reporting on this. There's a lot of very bizarre supply chain issues. What I will say, and my staff is on this call and they'll add to the chat, but there are two interesting efforts underway in terms of PPE distribution in our region, one of which is being run by GoBiz, in conjunction with the LA County Legislative Delegation and also SEIU to provide PPE for frontline workers. We'll put that information up on the chat. In addition, there's a philanthropic effort underway that Emily Miller and some folks who are involved with as well. And we'll put that information as well on the chat. That it's all about trying to hook up needs in hospitals with availability and folks like you. So we'll get both those up there, and we'll also send you some additional information because we'd love your help. I love Textile. You guys are great.
All right, next question is from Rob Croxall, also going to brew and slice and pint. And I think this one is for Congressman Liu.
Thank you, Congressman, for being here. As a small business owner, the prospect of COVID-driven litigation is a major concern, especially since through this thing, a lot of us have learned that our business insurance packages don't cover anything pathogen-related. So my concern is that without the benefit of insurance, a single incident could really put us out of business. So my question is there anything, what is the status, or is there conversation happening in the next relief package to contain provisions to protect small businesses?
Thank you, Rob, for your question. That is a great question you've asked. So Congress has passed 4 bipartisan bills to address this pandemic. The House has just introduced a 5th one. None of them have any provisions that shield businesses from liability. There's no sort of blanket immunity provisions. And the reason is you have a number of businesses like yours, many others that are doing the right thing. But you also have businesses, for example, there's a series of articles about this restaurant in Colorado where the owners were intentionally not social distancing. They were intentionally not having people wear masks. They were not taking any safety precautions because, in the words of the owners, they wanted to make a statement. So you wouldn't really want to shield that business from liability. And so there's a whole body of case law set up to deal with whether a business is negligent or intentionally doing bad things, and that's your standard tort law. What I could see happen is some standards put in from the federal government. So this new relief bill does direct OSHA to come up with standards so businesses actually know what sorts of things that they should be doing to take the precautions. And I could see provisions saying, well, if business does, meet these standards, then there really would be no basis for a lawsuit. But I think it'd be difficult for Congress to shield all businesses from immunity or liability if a business is in fact negligent or intentionally doing something that could cause serious illness or even death. So that's my sense of where things are.
Thanks, Congressman.
Great question. Thank you, Congressman Liu.
Mayor, can I interject? I think I may have heard Dr. Patrick mention that he needs to. Do you need to jump off the call in a few minutes?
Yeah, I've got a call with the FDA in a few minutes, so I've got to run.
Okay. Did you have any questions for Congressman Liu or Senator Allen while you're available for us?
I think one of my major concerns now is 2 things. One, I've really taken advantage of the fact that we have amazing skill sets in our group that actually can do the testing, because we've been doing whole genome sequencing testing, and we have the only ClearCap certified lab. So we've converted that entire team into not only building the test, but building rapid tests. So that will be made available, and I'll keep you informed of that. But my next big challenge is to get finished fill facilities. We're not talking about 100 million doses. We're talking about 1 billion doses. And the opportunity for us as a nation to be able to provide this kind of vaccines, not just for our country, for other countries. I'm closely in discussions with World Health Organization and CEPI, and where, frankly, I'm going to try and provide this for South Africa as well. But finished fill facilities, glass, bottles, stoppers, syringes, these kinds of logistics, I'm looking around now to identify that, and any help you could bring to that would be great. And we'll, I'd love to have this sort of offline discussion with all the things we're doing.
Thank you, Patrick. Will do. If you don't mind, I have a very quick question for you. There were multiple articles today about the Abbott rapid test that the White House was using and how we could have a very high error rate. Do you have a sense that, is that correct, that particular test is not great, and hopefully your test is better?
Yeah. So all these tests require a part of these thing called primers, where they're actually using, and I'm not going to go technical on it, but it all depends on the sensitivity of these tests. Some of them are not greatly sensitive. So you could have a virus and it's not picking up enough of it, or it's actually looking at the wrong part of the virus, or the virus is mutating, which it is. So between the three of these things, the test itself, it's not sensitive, that you're not picking enough of the virus, and the virus itself mutates, makes all of this very iffy. So I think at the end of the day, you need to test, unfortunately, different kind of tests, but also often. So that's why this idea of testing, of requiring millions of tests a day, is a very real issue. But at the end of the day, you got to get this antibody, you got to get the vaccine. And that's why, while we've been working desperately across the board, the only thing we focused on was the vaccine. Focused on it, so it's going to bring us all back, is this vaccine. And I must say, the FDA, that's what I'm getting off to be talking to Peter Marks in 2 minutes, is exactly this issue, is getting this into trials. And, we have enough in LA, in California, that we could do 5,000 patient trial literally in a week, because you inject healthy volunteers and you see the results in 28 days with regard to the immunity that you generate or not. So it's not unrealistic to know, do you have an active vaccine, not with regard to the long-term issues within the next 6 months, which then says that's all great, but can you produce 10 million doses, 100 million doses? So we've gone at risk. And in El Segundo, we're now currently producing it's a viral-based vaccine. It's an adenovirus that we're producing. So China has taken on adenovirus, it's first-generation adenovirus. Oxford's taken on adenovirus, but it's a chimpanzee adenovirus. J&J has taken on adenovirus, and it's an adenovirus. All of them are what we call first-generation adenoviruses. We have the only second-generation adenovirus that's been put into 125 patients already over the last 4 or 5 years, shown it to work in H1N1, Zika, Lassa fever, chikungunya. So we just went to work, and now we're working with BARDA to see how they can help us. As you know, BARDA gave J&J $500 million. They gave Moderna another $500 million. And we just on our own here. And so I just put together a proposal to BARDA, because I think we need to scale up. Without the funding, you can't scale up. And we know that we can actually do a 5,000 patient study just in California very quickly. So it's all about this Operation Warp Speed. And Peter Marks was the one that originated Operation Warp Speed. He's at the FDA. So I think these are the kinds of conversations I'm happy to have with you. But we literally have been on this 24/7 for the last 3 months. We took the sequence from China literally 2 weeks after they published it and made the construct. So as I said, I'll leave with this statement that I'm really optimistic that with all the science going on in the nation and the world, that there will be a vaccine. What we don't know, however, is that this is a genius virus. It has ways and ways and ways, backdoors and backdoors to evade the immune system. Very complicated ways. It acts like a cancer. And that's why we understood this very quickly, that we needed to figure out a vaccine that is not just antibody-based. The danger of an antibody-based vaccine, this virus has figured a way to take the antibody and actually enter into cells using the antibody. You should look up measles and you'll see the thing called amnesia. Measles causes an immune amnesia. It wipes out the entire memory system of the immune system to viral infections. I'm fearful that this COVID acts like measles. So the only way out of this is to get what we call T-cell memory. And that's what we've been doing in the cancer vaccine. That's why this vaccine is driving towards T-cell memory. So there's a lot of discussions I'd love to have with you, both at the Senate level and the Congress level, because I think this is where we as a nation could lead the rest of the world. Because it's only in the United States that we have the second generation adenovirus. UK doesn't have it, China doesn't have it, and the only place that has it, believe it or not, is El Segundo. So,
thanks, Dr. Pat. Appreciate your time.
Okay, I'm sorry I have to leave. I just have to take this call.
That's awesome. We're kind of at the end. I got one more question that has been asked that hasn't been asked. Well, it's been asked of us, but not here in this forum yet.
I appreciate both of your time. I talked about it earlier in terms of the impact on the sports and live entertainment business. It's a massive impact. And as we head forward here, we're certainly not alone, but it's pretty clear that we were first to get canceled, and we're probably going to be last back. And, we employ, hundreds of thousands, even close to 1 million employees in the United States. And I was curious as to both of your point of views as to whether there'll be federal funding that will help support the live entertainment industry as we come back.
So the HEROES Act that is introduced in the House, it has to be negotiated with the U.S. Senate. So we will follow up with you to see what provisions you may have in mind that could help your industry, and we'll see what can be done during those negotiations. And I agree with you that there are certain industries that are much more impacted by COVID-19 than other ones, including yours. And we need to make sure that we can provide relief to industries like yours. So we'll follow up with you offline and see what we can do.
Great. Thanks, Congressman.
Kelly, it's interesting to look at all the conversations happening in the sports world right now. I hate to prolong this, but I know there's been a lot of conversation. I know the Bundesliga is starting up on Saturday. They're going to have no fans. There's conversations in MLB about having everyone go to Arizona or Florida and play in empty stadiums close together, so they're not, interacting with big portions of the population. Are similar conversations happening in the NHL right now?
Yeah, absolutely. We're heading right in that direction right now. I mean, all the various U.S. leagues are talking, about their return to play in front of fanless scenarios, depending on where they're at in their seasons. I think the most speculated and reported situation in the National Hockey League is very similar to the NBA, and what you're dealing with multiple sites for bubble scenarios.
Wow. Thank you all for your valuable insights. Congressman Ted Lieu and Senator Ben Allen, thank you so much for your leadership and taking time out of your very hectic calendars to address our business community. We really appreciate it. As you heard today, El Segundo continues to be on the forefront of innovation, solving some of the world's most complex problems in aerospace, bioscience, and technology, and across many different industries. With this pandemic, we are facing a significant challenge, and we're grateful that the leaders of our business community are coming together to find a solution. As mayor and on behalf of the City Council, we're committed to find creative solutions to support our business community. Thank you so much. What an incredible experience.